I've got an apology from Councillor Callaghan. Darrell, you've got one as well.
I've got one, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. I've got one from Councillor Pennington. And just for those listening to the streaming members, as we stand at the moment, we also don't have from the panel Councillors Austin, Chown and Rose on the call. So as we speak, members, we have 8 panel members on the call. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Next, if we could move to the minutes of the last meeting. That was the meeting held on the 8th of October. Can we approve these as a correct record of the minutes? Is there any member of the panel who dissents? They could indicate in the chat box. No. Okay, then those are approved. Next is urgent business. There is an item under this item on the agenda, and quite a few members have experienced IT problems since the weekend when there was the migration from Skype to Team. And these problems have been are maybe still with us in some cases, and as such I felt it appropriate to call for a verbal report, and this is why this is being dealt with under urgent business. So Councillor Hopwood, as the executive member whose portfolio includes IT, would you like to commence the report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to explain what has happened over the past week. And with that, I'm going to hand directly over to Mike Ward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wood. And thanks again for the opportunity to add a little bit of detail to what's happened over the last few days. Some of the background to this is obviously, that we've got a demand in the organisation to roll out Microsoft Teams, both from officers, managers and members. And what I didn't want to do is to roll out a Teams messaging platform whilst keeping Skype in the enterprise as well, because we know having 2 platforms for messaging adds to the confusion. Teams is a little bit different to Skype. It's cloud-based. And part of the complexity of the rollout is created by moving some of our functionality out of our server room and into one of Microsoft's servers in the cloud. Because of that complexity, we'd engaged consultants who were Teams telephony experts. And they helped us to reconfigure the telephony because it's pretty complex. And we had to create a new space in this cloud, if you like, to host our phone calls. But we didn't, again, we've done it differently to, say, Plymouth or Devon, where we've actually taken the step of moving our telephony into the cloud. We're doing, so it's in a way, it's a full Teams experience. We did a pilot exercise with managers and Homes VLT and SLT. And during that exercise, we realised there was a benefit of moving mailboxes into the cloud as well, which is our Outlook mailboxes, which is where which was at the cause of, if you like, this issue. By moving the mailboxes into the cloud, it gives us better voicemail integration, better calendar integration, and better collaboration features when we're using Teams in the future. So on the 27th of October, myself and other officers met to make a plan to rolling out Teams to members. And in that plan, we agreed to migrate on the evening of Thursday, the 19th of November. That would have been the day that we would have moved your Outlook calendars into the cloud and deployed Teams to your as your default messaging application on your surfaces. We scheduled some training the following day to iron out any issues, and then there was a project plan that highlighted these activity for weeks commencing the 16th of November. And now that's the date that's stuck in my mind. And so that's the date that led to my mistake of scheduling the migration of the mailboxes and the migration to Teams on the Sunday evening instead of on the Thursday evening. And it wasn't a typo or anything like that. For some reason, I got that in my mind as the date. So that was my mistake. What the effect of that would have been to create confusion, if you like, in as much as you would go from Skype to Teams without any training. It shouldn't have created the issues you had accessing Outlook. That was a slightly different issue. We'd already moved a lot of mailboxes into the cloud. We hadn't had any problems with officers. Then suddenly we were faced with this issue where we moved members of mailboxes into the cloud, and we were having problems. So what we were doing was looking for something that was common to members that wasn't to officers in order to get to the root cause of this issue. Was it the permissions? Was it the fact that you were using a Surface Go? But eventually what we found was that it was because you're all unique in as much as you've got southhams.gov.uk email addresses. And that was what the cause was of the issues with BlackBerry Work as well, because our cloud instance was trying to authenticate swdevon.gov.uk addresses, and your email addresses by default in Outlook was southhams.gov.uk. That's the root cause of that issue. Nonetheless, if I had have scheduled it on the day that I should have scheduled it, we could have been more prepared to step you through resolving the confusion over all the dialog boxes that appeared. That said as well, I mean, with everything else going on at the moment with the FIT project and COVID drawing resources away, you could argue, well, was this the right time to make this change? We thought it was. We hadn't seen any previous issues. And the benefits, I think, will outweigh the little bit of pain that we're going through at the moment, because it will allow us with better collaboration, better conferencing facilities. It's much better than Skype. I think anyone that's used Teams and goes back to Skype can see the difference. And what we're doing now is we're still investigating a few of the issues we've got with messages and dialog boxes popping up as users log in. But fundamentally, the cause of the issue was a combination of me jumping the gun with the deployment and this unexpected effect of southhams.gov.uk mailbox addresses. So that's the reason. It's been a little bit uncomfortable, as you can imagine, but I would like to take the opportunity to say thanks to Councillor Nikki Hopwood for doing a quick survey of her members and supporting me to persevere with rolling this out rather than rolling it back. And also to Councillor John McKay, who helped me to test out an alternative resolution, which, as it happened, we didn't have to deploy. And also thanks to Judy Pearce as well for remaining supportive, even though we do get the occasional blip, and as we noted earlier, keeping that sense of humour. So I think together we work really well, and I think we'll get through this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Ward. That seemed to be an entirely fair and reasonable explanation. We all make mistakes occasionally. Sounds like it's being resolved. I would thank you for your honesty and your frankness.
Thank you.
Mike, can you just, what is the current situation? Have all of the problems been resolved, or are there still outstanding problems?
No, it's not resolved to my satisfaction, because when I was talking to Councillor Hopwood this morning, she still sees some message boxes that appear that we don't really want to be appearing on everybody's screens. And what she does is ignores them, and everything seems to work. But so we're still investigating that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smearden.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to thank Mike. That was as you say, fairly honest explanation. So the only Mike and a colleague came on yesterday and got my machine up and working. The downside is the backup system which a lot of members use, which is on iPhones, etc. The BlackBerry system, that one's still not working for me. I don't know about other members, but I think it was a shame that that system went down. Possibly it was beyond our control. I don't know, but that has always been a backup. And the problem was that both systems went down at the same time. As I say, my BlackBerry's not working. I don't know about other members.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are aware there's still some issues with. We know what the problem is with BlackBerry. We can resolve it. So what we'll do is we'll be in touch with you later today to get your BlackBerry work up and running as well.
Mike,
Okay.
there are two. It appears there may be two members who are having problems accessing the meeting. I think there's Councillor Austin. I don't know whether he's now in the meeting, but it looks as though Councillor Sweet is having problems as well. So can those be resolved so that they have access to the meeting? Could that be resolved ASAP, please?
I'll have a look at that as soon as I drop off this call. Those were two that we tried to contact yesterday to resolve their issues, and they were busy. And Councillor Austin actually said he would contact us today for us to resolve those issues. So yeah, they're on our list.
Yeah, but I think they need to be helped now so that they can access.
That's right. Yeah, Councillor Austin is trying to get into the meeting. He can't.
Okay, Councillor Spencer.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everybody. I just wanted to echo what Councillor Thomas was saying, in the sense that, thank you to Mike for what he's doing. The test and worth of an IT department is getting the situation resolved. Everyone appreciates that mistakes happen, and this was annoying rather than critical, I think, at least as far as I was concerned. But I'm all resolved, and I appreciate the time and effort that's been put into getting it resolved. So thank you, Mike and his team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I see there's a message from Councillor Sweet and Councillor Abbott saying that they can't hear anything, and it seems that Councillor Rose is having a problem accessing the meeting. So could that be dealt with at ASAP, please?
Yeah, as soon as I drop off this call, Councillor Birch, I'll have those resolved.
Okay, I see there is a message from Councillor Rose for if action could be taken on that, please. Councillor Rose, are you in the meeting now? No. Okay.
Sorry, John. Did he say that I could just comment quickly?
Sorry. Yeah. Are you in the meeting now? Yeah. Quite obviously you are. Yeah. Can you hear what's going on? Okay. No. I think you're muted. No. Okay. Councillor Brazil.
Thank you, John. Yeah, just asking about the Surface Goes. I wonder how many members of staff have Surface Goes, as opposed to members. If you could have that.
Mike, can you answer that, please?
Yeah, we only really use Surface Goes ourselves for testing your experience. I think Neil Hawke uses a Surface Go, but otherwise we'll issue staff with laptops.
Yeah, so following on from that, I mean, I think many of the problems have originated from Surface Go, as they did right at the beginning as well. And I wonder if there are any plans to get rid of the Surface Goes and give all members laptops as well.
I can answer that, Chair,
yeah, do you want to take that one, Steve?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Brazil, and you're absolutely right. And I think when we ordered the Surface Goes, they were to give members that sort of portability, and they were never anticipated to be used the way that we've been using them for this past sort of 6-9 months. And we're in the process of, Mike's actually in the process now of getting a quote for laptops for members. So as soon as we've got that quote and we've worked out, I think we're going to fund it from the IT reserve, where we will be rolling out laptops to members, which I think will be a far better experience for members in terms of the current working environment. So we are involved in that, looking at that now, and as soon as we've got the prices, we'll be putting together a project plan for rolling those out.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
see. Mr. Molyneux, you've got comment, please. So is there anything further you'd like to say?
No, that was what I wanted to say. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. There's just one other issue. There was mention of the possibility of postponing the team training. Is that going to be the case, or is the team training program still in place?
It's still in place.
It's still in place. Okay.
Yeah. Don't know if Steve Gardner wants to comment any more on that. Or...
No. Okay.
No?
Councillor Hotwood.
Thank you, Chairman. I really am. Well, I don't know what the word is. I'm just blessed to hear the positiveness of members and the supportiveness this morning, and it just goes to show that, you know, when there is an issue within the South Hams, as long as we all pull together, things can be sorted. And it is a credit to our IT team and Mr. Although it was his finger in the beginning that did the damage. It was resolved, and human error does happen at times, and I thank members for persevering and bearing with the team over the past few days since Monday, so that we haven't had to take a step backwards and go back to the old system of Microsoft, and we've moved forward into Teams. So thank you, members. Your support this morning has really been heartening.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Sorry, just to reassure you, Mr. Chairman, I've had an email inviting me to my training on Monday from Mr. Gardner, so that is all going ahead.
Okay, good. Councillor Hodson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just, to be honest, it's making me a bit of a struggle to get in. But anyway, I just heard the last few words by Steve and talking about replacing our Surface Go with laptops. Can I just therefore make a request that the ones that we have are put back into for recycling for members of the community or schools that may need them? Because there's a lot of young people out there who are desperate to have laptops to help with their education at the moment.
Okay.
So we don't just stockpile them, basically. I'm sure that probably wasn't going to be the case, but I'm just putting it in as an early thought.
Mr. Molyneux.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. We'll look into that in terms of we'd already had the initial conversation in terms of what the options were to recycle them. Yes, but we will have that in.
Thank you.
Okay. So, are there any other comments or questions? I see that Councillor Austin has now joined the meeting. Also, are there any other comments or questions? If not, I'd like to thank Mike for the frank and honest presentation, and thank you very much indeed for all you're doing, and also if you could thank your team for all the work they've done as well. So if you could pass on those thanks.
Yeah, will do. Thank you.
Okay, I see now we've got, right, Councillor Sweet, you wanted to comment?
Hi, yeah, I don't know what you've just been talking about because my audio cut out, then the whole thing cut out, and I've had to restart the device twice. So I guess you're talking about IT stuff, but I find it quite difficult, and it feels like every time pretty much we have a meeting or have anything, I have to spend 20-25 minutes kind of rebooting everything. I only got my emails, I think, came through on Tuesday evening, and that was sort of after lots of times trying to sort of phone the service desk. I haven't got anything back up on the BlackBerry yet. So it's quite, I mean, I know everybody's really busy, but I feel like a lot of my time goes into IT, and I don't have the sort of knowledge and the capacity. I know obviously Steve's brilliant and the service desk are brilliant, but it's still quite time consuming, and I don't feel that's a great use of my time to sort of represent the constituents. So, I really hope this Teams works, but I've missed, I don't know what you've been talking about. You've been talking about IT. I've missed the whole thing.
Okay, thank you.
So, Councillor, if you've got some time free later today, we'll get someone to give you a call and see if we can go through the issues with you.
That would be great. I mean, Steve said he'd set up a call yesterday, which I don't know if that was for the BlackBerry or put on here, but that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Rose.
Thanks, John. I'm having ongoing issues with my home internet, which is just always coming and going. It's just been literally nightmarish. And I don't want to go into that right now, but just to say that if my internet fails during this meeting, I really want to be able to get back into it by mobile. Is there a number that I can call from my mobile so that I can access this meeting?
I'll get Darryl to send it to you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Rose. Okay. Right, I'd like to move on to the next business unless there is another urgent comment or question. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the division of agenda, and there will be no need to divide the agenda for this meeting. Next is declarations of interest. Members are invited to declare any personal or disclosable pecuniary interests, including the nature and extent of such interests they may have in any items to be considered at this meeting. Do any members wish to disclose any interests? No? Okay. Next is public forum. Mr. White, I think you can confirm there's no questions being submitted by the public. Is that correct?
That's spot on. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Next is the executive forward plan. Mr. White, have you received any communication from a member wishing for an executive member to address any of the items on the executive forward plan?
No, there's been no advance notice given. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, in that case, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the community safety partnership. So I'll hand over to Councillor Hawkins, who can, if you could please speak to the report and introduce the officers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure all members have read the report. Our lead councillor on this subject is Councillor Tom Holway, who I believe is going to give an introduction to this as well. Tom represents the district on this partnership very, very well and has served the partnership well over a number of years. One thing I would perhaps suggest, perhaps for the new year, the early part of the new year, is that we have a meeting with the partnership lead officers to update members on what is happening, and also give members the opportunity to raise issues that they may have in their wards that the community safety partnership could perhaps help to address in the future. If I pass over now to Tom, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, certainly, yes.
Okay, thank you. I think Tom's with us.
Yeah, I am here. Sorry. I don't have an awful lot to say, Chairman. I think you'll find that Becca and Louisa will inform members very well of the detail of what's going on. I'm just amazed at how much work gets done and how much liaison there is between the different agencies. And I have to congratulate everyone involved, because I think they do an amazing job. And I'm sure they'll tell you that we've pulled in yet more money because of our Turning Corners initiative, and many of the initiatives that start in Dartmoor and South Devon end up going countrywide. So I think, it's worth noting that, and I just want to congratulate everyone involved, and particularly Becca and Louisa. Thank you.
Thank you. So Rebecca and Louisa are presuming that they're here, and would you like to speak to the report?
Yes, please, Chair, if that's okay. This is Becca here. So good morning, members. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Rebecca Hewitt, and I'm the Chair and also Manager of the Community Safety Partnership. I'm based at Teignbridge Council, but I also work on your behalf for South Hams. Louisa and I, Louisa will introduce herself when she gets to her bit. We're just going to run through the report very quickly, pulling out some highlights. which is what we do each year. And then obviously we will take any questions, but Louisa and I are going to do a bit of a double act, if that's okay, Chair. Okay, so in relation to the executive summary, just to remind you that it is a statutory duty for us to bring this paper to you on an annual basis under the Crime and Justice Act. And what we are bringing you is for scrutiny of each of the partners in their working partnership. As many of you will know, because you've heard from us before, the partnership actually operates across Teignbridge, South Hams and West Devon and has done since 2007. We also work collaboratively across the whole of Devon in relation to child sexual exploitation, modern slavery and a whole number of other topics which give a better economy of scale working at that level. In relation to outcomes and outputs, we want to make it clear to members that we do work from an intelligence-based perspective. We work on the information that's provided in our annual Devon strategic assessment and also regular updates that we receive in the interim on specific types of crime or disorder. We also work to the Police and Crime Plan, which is a document produced by the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office. And again, in statute, we have to work alongside that plan. It's also really important to say.
Can I just stop you there? The volume, it's very difficult to hear. Is it possible for you to get closer to your speaker, or can we find some way of increasing the volume? I'm sorry to disturb you.
That's all right, no problem. Is that any better?
That's a bit better, yes.
Okay, all right, and I'll hold the microphone a little bit closer. It's very rare for people to tell me I'm too quiet, so thank you for that.
There's always a first.
Yes. So we have focused very much on vulnerability, and we've been doing that for several years now. And we also produce our local delivery plan. We set our priorities based on that data, and we produce our local delivery plan, which is scrutinised at each of our quarterly meetings. And obviously, Councillor Holway is part of that process. This year we've received £25,000 from the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner under the Safer Communities grant. So now I'm going to talk to you about key achievements across the whole of the partnership. We've done the layout a little bit differently for members this year, hopefully to make it clearer about how we're working across the different priorities. So under the first priority, sexual violence, domestic abuse, I'm just pulling out a couple of things. One is Louisa has worked really closely with a wide range of partners to produce a toolkit which was created specifically to support older people who are later in life, because we were seeing an increase in domestic abuse for those communities. Interestingly, as Councillor Holway said, this was produced by us and is now being used across the whole of Devon, and we've got interest much wider. And we've also been focusing on domestic abuse throughout the COVID pandemic, trying to ensure that people still have the confidence to report, because I'm sure you can imagine we were concerned that with people being isolated, that might be more of a risk. We also have to engage, again, in statute, we have to engage in domestic homicide reviews, which take place if there is a domestic-related homicide or suicide. I'm pleased to say that currently we don't have any of those in South Hams, but unfortunately that's not true for the whole of the partnership area, so that is something we're working on. Moving on to exploitation, which is a key area of our work. We host the South Devon Exploitation Network, which brings partners together to look at the most recent threats and risks around exploitation. I held that meeting yesterday afternoon, and we have 15 different representatives of agencies, including Torbay Hospital, including social care, including drug and alcohol services, and we also have prisons involved in that too. It's really good information sharing. We attend a number of Devon-wide partnerships around anti-slavery, prevent and other partnerships. Many of you actually were involved in the exploitation prevention training that we undertook over the last year, where we're delighted to say that we had 58 different organisations represented. The purpose of those training was for members of frontline services to be able to identify exploitation and, importantly, report it to be able to get support. We also ran prevent training, which Louisa facilitated, and again we had 105 staff. So the CSP has got quite a clear role in workforce development and raising awareness. And also the last bullet point on there, we did an into the county presentation to address county lines risk for young people, and we managed with some partner funding that came from the schools to actually get nearly 3,000 young people in front of that performance, and the feedback was really positive. In relation to drug and alcohol misuse, a big piece of our work has been responding to an operational concern around some fake Valium tablets, which have been causing some significant harm within the community, actually across the whole of the Forth area. And Louisa and I are still linked into that. And again, the CSP has been key in sharing information so that we can manage risk around those tablets. Changes in youth culture, youth gang activity has been a significant area of work, and members, we talked about this the last time I presented. We continue to have that as a focus because we believe it's an area where we can do some really good preventative work. Louisa will tell you a little bit more about this in a moment, but we are working with a Wave Academy, which is a pupil referral unit based in Dartington, around some mentoring. But again, Louisa will mention that in a moment. And also the other thing is turning corners. But again, I'm going to speak about that a little bit more in a moment. Emerging issues, suffice it to say, COVID has been very significant and has had a significant impact on the Community Safety Partnership's work. We've been engaged in lots of different operational and strategic meetings around COVID and around the impact of COVID on community safety issues. We've been really actively involved in that. Two other things I just wanted to mention. One is we have provided 100 handheld domestic abuse alarms to survivors of domestic abuse to make them feel and to be more secure. And also, we also did the member briefings that were requested at the previous overview and scrutiny. It sounds from Councillor Hawkins that there would be interest in us doing that again. We would definitely be happy to do that. I'm just going to hand over to Louisa to talk about specific achievements in the South Hams.
Thank you, Becca. Good morning, everyone. My name's Louisa Daly, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm Community Safety and Safeguarding Specialist at South Hams and West Devon Councils. So just picking up on a few of the achievements specific to South Hams, as Becca mentioned earlier on, I hold quarterly schools meetings, as you can see in that first bullet point there, working closely with the main schools in our towns in South Hams, and it's proven to be really good information sharing and ways to share resourcing and safeguarding and police information, obviously through the correct protocols, etc. We've worked with the schools as an example of that using the Into the Counties presentation. Again, Becca alluded a little bit to that earlier on. So it's a presentation by a theatre company. Some of you may be aware we've worked this way with drugs and alcohol presentations before. This was an exploitation presentation, if you like. The theatre company we commissioned through the Community Safety Partnership on a 50-50 funding basis with the schools that we work with, and the presentation goes out to year 10, so about ages 14-15, and they do an hour presentation followed by question and answer sessions whilst the actors actually remain in role. So it's a really interesting and conversation starting piece of work. And we also at Ivy Bridge put on an evening presentation, and invited parents and other staff members and professionals, which was well received also. I've worked similar to Becca with our South Devon proactive policing team around exploitation and safeguarding people in the community. That's been a really good piece of work, working with members of the public who need a little bit of extra support, who may well be involved in county lines, and linking into the council maybe through extra support needed through housing provision or housing advice. And lastly, the Wave Academy, Becca mentioned earlier on, it's a pupil referral unit based in Dartington, and it has an intake across South Devon for those pupils that mainstream schools are unable to hold on to for various reasons. So the pupil referral unit at Wave, we've worked with a gentleman called John Gale who runs a Motivate scheme, and that's a mentoring scheme, and we've seen some really positive results there at Wave. John is an ex-professional footballer from Birmingham and Torquay, and he just seems to be able to link in with some of our young people who are really hard to engage with in ways that other professionals have not been able to do. So it's been a really positive piece of work so far. We'll be looking at an evaluation of that at the end of the 12-week period, which will come in late December. And we're also already looking to work with him in different ways across different schools across our partnership area. Moving on to the antisocial behaviour updates. Becca, do you want to talk about turning corners now, or shall I cover antisocial behaviour first?
If members are happy to just quickly cover that, then I can talk about turning corners. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So as you know, members, John Ward is our antisocial behaviour specialist. He also works in environmental health capacity. As you can see, his achievements in antisocial behaviour include he runs monthly ASB, antisocial behaviour meetings, with regular attendance from key agencies, including police, registered social landlords, and officers from South Hams District Council. Over the last year, he's received 39 individuals referrals into the ASB escalation process, and you can see from the report there the breakdown of the outcomes of those. One in particular was a gentleman in the South Hams area who'd actually moved into the South Hams area in the last 6 to 12 months with previous history elsewhere in South Devon, not in our area. And he was approaching females from the age, as you can see there, from the age of around 15 to those in their mid-40s, causing some distress. So a community protection warning letter was sent to him, and as a result of multi-agency working with police, South Hams District Council and social care, he's had additional support provided to him now, which has more or less stopped that behaviour. And the last point there, one community trigger activation from a resident in South Hams. The review meeting found that complaints had been correctly investigated and acted upon, and the RSL registered social landlords are continuing to consider eviction proceedings in relation to that case. Thank you, Becca.
Okay, I'll just talk about Turning Corners programme, and I'll try and be quick, members. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do get very excited about this, so I will try and curb myself. The Turning Corners programme was across Teambridge, South Hams and Torbay initially, and we had funding from the Home Office to deliver the programme, again, that I talked to you about last year. What we've been able to do, so the focus of the programme was identifying and working with young people being drawn into crime, violence and exploitation, and then reviewing information about those individuals and data to see if any interventions that we were working on delivering through that programme and others were moving them towards or away from exploitation and that risk. So you'll see under the outcomes for Turning Corners, we worked in total with 144 young people. And I think it's important to caveat that by the time we actually got the announcement of the money with the Home Office and by the time we recruited, we actually only had about 10, 11 months of the programme. But over that time, we were able to identify and work with 144 young people aged between 11 and 18 who we believed were at risk. The highest risk factors that we could identify when we worked with the project were low school attendance, being a suspect or accused of a low-level crime, having experienced at least one known adverse childhood experience, or drug and alcohol misuse. 100 of those young people over the time of the project did not have an escalation of risk. Now that, let me tell you, is incredibly significant. There's more data there, there's lots more data behind this, but again, I want to be mindful of the timescales of this. We did have a formal evaluation by from the Home Office. Unfortunately, COVID has slowed that up, and that's not likely to be published until well into 2021. So I was approached by the Police and Crime Commissioner a couple of months ago to ask if our Community Safety Partnership would be interested in submitting a bid to the newly created Violence Crime Prevention Fund under the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner, which is £1 million a year for 4 years. I brought together many other partners. We initially worked out that it wasn't feasible to continue to include Torbay for operational and practical reasons. So a couple of weeks ago, with lots of partnership support, I pitched to the programme board, the Violence Prevention Programme Board of the Office of Police Crime Commissioner, and we were successful with £900,000 worth of funding over the next 4 years. So members, if I remind you that my annual budget is £25,000, you can imagine how excited I was to understand that we could actually draw down £225,000 a year for the next 4 years. So what that enables us to do is deliver projects and interventions directly to young people across Teignbridge and South Hams, to do that in an intelligence-based way. But the most important thing that we're doing is having 4 years of opportunity for evaluation means that we can create an evidence base to demonstrate the importance of getting these projects mainstreamed into education, into health, and into different partners. So we are really excited to have that money and to have that opportunity and to work so closely and collaboratively with the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner. And I'm very proud of the programme and all the partners that worked on the initial programme, which meant that the Office of the Police Crime Commissioners had faith that we would be able to deliver this programme. So I'm very excited about what we'll be able to tell you when we come next time. So the main considerations for members to include under item 5 is that we will continue to engage statutory partners in our work, and we will performance report through our local delivery plan. So Chair, that concludes our delivery of the report, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to present that to members this morning.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you both for the presentation. We have some questions. First of all, Councillor Spencer.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I wanted to ask a question or perhaps some clarification. I understand that, sorry, my computer's updating and it's just decided to make a lot of noise. I apologise. I understand what you said in your report about delivering all the things that you've been delivering and the engagement that you've had with your partners, and that's certainly very commendable. And you made a number of comments about your Turning Corners programme in particular, and a few other bits and pieces, but you engage with a huge number of partners, and I wondered what effect all this engagement with the partners is having on the I didn't know how else to phrase this other than the end user. I don't mean that rudely at all, but all the people that you're trying to help and deal with. What effect has all this engagement actually had on those people? Have we seen reductions in all of the areas where you're trying to help people with vulnerability and such like? Are there any measurements of that? Thank you.
Okay, so it's very difficult in doing preventative work to try and work out. So we can tell you that we delivered a session to 2,800 young people around how to keep away from dangerous drugs networks and how to manage their risk of exploitation. What I can't tell you is how many of those 2,800 used that. So it is very, very difficult. We try, so as part of our annual review with the Office of the Police Crime Commissioner, we have to give evaluation. So some of the evaluation that I can give you is, for example, in relation to when we deliver a training, that when we ask people out of 10 who attended the exploitation prevention training, out of 10 people move 3 places higher in their knowledge. They move from a 6 to a 9 in relation to how they perceive their knowledge of exploitation. So again, your question specifically about the end user. This is why we're so excited about the Turning Corners programme, because I will be able to tell you that in future meetings. What I have been able to tell you about Turning Corners programme 1 is, like I say, that 100 young people whose risks were assessed did not increase their risk levels, and a number actually reduced them. So that's one example where we can give you that detail. Unfortunately, with the resources that we have as a CSP and the broad scope of initiatives that we're trying to deliver, we don't have the opportunity to do the evaluation to the detail that we would like to be able to give you more information on that specific question, Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. Councillor Smurden.
Yep, thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's mainly a question for Louisa because, I mean, it seems a long time ago now, a couple of years, I think. We ran a task and finish group that looked into well, problems with drug use and antisocial, mainly antisocial stuff. And it was sort of concentrated around Totnes because that appeared to be where the bulk of the problem was, although our investigation was across the whole of the district. Could you give us a bit of just a very short update as to, you know, what the situation is now? I mean, the impression is, admittedly from distance, that there appear to be less problems. What's the situation now?
Thank you, Councillor Smurden. Yeah, you're referring to the task and finish group that we had because we were finding excessive numbers of needles or discarded needles and drug paraphernalia in and around the toilets in Totnes. That was the issue you're referring to, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Yeah. So out of that, we had a multi-agency meeting and we worked really closely with public health to create a pilot project, which actually is still running. So I guess that's part of the update around a pick and mix service, if you like, for needles. So previously, needles were sold in, say, packs of 10 and users weren't always needing 10. So some of those discarded needles, albeit some were dirty and used needles, often a lot of those needles were unused and unwanted needles. So a pick and mix service at the pharmacy or at the relevant pharmacies were made sure that the users weren't discarding excess needles. We still get from time to time a bit of drug paraphernalia and litter, and I work closely with Emma Widdicombe on that, but really not in the volumes that we were before. So hopefully for now that issue has subsided.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sweet.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the presentations. It was quite staggering the amount of kind of work and the level of partnership that the Community Safety Partnership and Rebecca take part in. A couple of questions. I think partly because of the volume. Rebecca, can you just clarify regarding the Turning Corners programme, the funding? Actually, that ceased, didn't it, in March 2020? So are you saying that through the funding that the police crime commissioners helped with, that you will re-establish the Turning Corners programme?
Yep, that's absolutely correct, Councillor Sweet. Okay. We will be starting, we're hoping to start projects from January, and that funding that we've now got is £225,000 per year for the next 4 years, so £900,000 in total.
Okay, but presumably that's not all for that project, or is it?
It is. That is for the delivery of Turning Corners across Cambridge and South Hams.
Okay, amazing. Okay, thank you. The other thing, I did mention this, I can't remember if it was at the ONS last year or at one of the workshops, sort of about internet radicalisation and what work is being done throughout Devon on that. I think I sort of mentioned about sort of, far right groups, sort of, infiltrating different groups of people via the internet, and I feel that that's definitely increased since COVID. Without wanting to go into any great detail about anything, but I think the groups like QAnon and the alternative right-wing groups, they obviously are using the internet to pick up on, for example, anti-mask wearing, that kind of movement. And I don't want to go into any depth because obviously I don't want to get into suppression of free speech or anything, but I'm just wondering, that's something which is definitely on the rise and something which I see and I'm aware of, and I'm wondering how, if there's what work's being done in and around that.
Lots of work. Let me reassure you there is a lot of work. So this is work again that we're tied in across Devon on through the Prevent partnership. We have seen a drop in reports through the channel process for people that we are concerned about for radicalisation, but we are also aware from Interpol and other partners, that's international policing, that we get reports through from, that we have seen an increase of concern around radicalisation online, because through COVID so many people have been online. We have also seen far-right organisations who have used COVID as a bit of a way to access people. Within Teambridge, we've seen right-wing, we've seen lots of graffiti with making reference to COVID and having swastikas. So we are seeing that concern about far right. So what are we doing about it? Well, we're engaging with lots of our schools and our partner agencies. It's something that I raised yesterday in the Exploitation network that I mentioned. The other thing is we've worked collaboratively across Devon, and a video has been produced which absolutely picks up on young people being radicalised online. That video has been viewed many times in Devon, but has also been picked up and has been used as part of national campaigns. So it is a real focus of our work. It's something that we're working at Devon level, but we are also working at talking to our schools about, and I'm really pleased to see that we have actually seen an increase in reporting over the last literally few days, where schools are now seeing those concerns because they've got access to those children again, and we can work to prevent that radicalisation. So I'm pleased to see that those reports are coming through now, because it's something that we are very concerned at and is at the forefront of our response to COVID.
Okay, thank you. It's just briefly to come back. Obviously, you can, you have that feedback via schools for young people. What about for, sort of adults? Is there any way to look at or monitor, or because some of it's quite subtle, isn't it? I think sometimes people don't kind of realize that they're subscribing to things that have those much deeper agendas.
So obviously the police have their response to that, and the police will do what they need to do. If we are aware of any like public activity that is online, then we would share that with the police. But the other thing is, the point of our exploitation prevention network that I talked about is we have, for example, social workers who are working with people with learning disabilities and disability that attend that. We have mental health practitioners. We have drug and alcohol practitioners. So they are working with the most vulnerable in our community. And we know that people that get subjected to exploitation are often those that are vulnerable. So that's why we engage targeted with those communities. Radicalisation, online radicalisation, doesn't just happen with young people. That's why we take both approaches, working with schools and partners and young people, but also working with those who are working with vulnerable people and the general population through our campaigns.
Okay. Thank you. I've just got a question. It's on page 16 of the report, item 3, and it's also mentioned elsewhere in the report about the local delivery plan, which seems to be a key document. Could you just tell us a little bit more about how this document, this local delivery plan, is produced and who participates in its production?
Of course I can. So in March every year we get the Devon Strategic Assessment, which I've mentioned, which is about a 60-70 page document which draws in information from the police and partner agencies such as Drug Treatment Service, Sexual Assault Referral Centres, Youth Services. We get all of that information around the priorities which are listed in this paper under our key achievements, those priority headings. We then bring together the CSP and slightly wider partners. So we look at each of those priorities and see who we need to bring in to discuss that. Once we've got everybody in the room, which is normally about 30 people, I work through each of those different priorities. I look at what the intelligence and information from the strategic assessment is telling us. I ask all those local partners to tell us if they've got any additional information to bring it right up to date. We then look at what response the CSP has done in the past. We then look at and agree the response that the CSP needs to deliver in the future. At that meeting, we then write out those priorities and actions for the CSP. After the meeting, Louisa and I then put that into a local delivery plan, which is literally a list of activities, some of which we are leading, some of which we support. So might be Devon-wide stuff that we're supporting, but we're clear what we're leading and what we're supporting. And then that goes to the next Community Safety Partnership meeting for sign-off, and that becomes our partnership plan. So as well as having that at the beginning, obviously, as I've mentioned in my report, we will have emerging issues that crop up as we go through the year. So we do add things into that document as well.
So thank you very much for that explanation. So would it be possible that once the plan is finalised, that a copy can be sent to us and circulated to all members so that they are aware of what your programme is, and then that give us a much better understanding of what you've got on in the forthcoming year? Will that be possible?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Hopwood.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I just really wanted to commend these two very, very usually excitable ladies who have seemed to be quashed slightly by being on an online platform, which is a shame because I enjoy their enthusiasm. Although they are enthusiastic, but you have to be in the room with them to get the true enthusiasm. Commend you both on the amazing amount of money you've been successful in getting for next year. You know, that's no mean feat, and over 4 years that will make a significant difference. So well done, you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hopwood. Councillor Austin.
Yeah, I'd just like to come back on a comment that was made by Councillor Sweet earlier on and just clarify that this is not a political issue because, she was talking about you working with people, both young and adults from the far right. You are actually working with people from the far left as well, aren't you? And in fact, my concern... Yeah, sorry?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and my concern, for example, is people involved in environmentalism at the moment, because where I come in contact with, extremists the most is particularly around the environmental issue, where they seem to think that the world is about to end and they need to take extreme action on that. And you would be working with both young people and adults as well, because I'm particularly concerned about some of the adults who take an extreme view on that. Are you involved in any of that?
So I can say very clearly that radicalisation and extremism can be on any issue and any kind of political direction, and we would review every single one of those. It's interesting that you mention environmental issues, because what we have actually seen is some environmental causes have actually tried to be infiltrated by some national organisations to move people more towards extremist views. And some of those have actually been from the far right. So there is something that we have been experiencing locally as well. So trying to link organisations such as Extinction Rebellion to the far right, that has not been done with the support of Extinction Rebellion organisation, but it does mean it becomes very, very complex. So there is certainly, the reason for my mentioning far right is because it is one of the highest issues for us in Devon in relation to extremism, but actually, as you clearly say, Councillor Austin, we deal with all issues where there is extreme views which are inciting violence and hatred.
And what about the far left, for example, like Marxist views and extreme environmental left-wing views? What do you do about that?
It's treated in exactly the same way. If it's extremism which is inciting hatred or moving towards violence, then we look at it in exactly the same way.
Thank you. Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to put a plug in for the CSP forum on the 9th of December. Members will have all had an invitation to it by now, and I would urge them to register, even if they can't stay for every item. It would be good if members can drop in and get a bit more of a flavour of what CSP do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Sweet, I don't think we're going to achieve anything by you having a debate with Councillor Austin. So bearing in mind that Councillor Hawkins talked about, proposed a further meeting. I think any issues may possibly be dealt with there rather than at this meeting. So I'll call on Councillor Hawkins to, you want to comment at the end. I think we probably reached the end of questions and comments. So,
John, do you mind if I just say, I don't think I said far right. I think I'm pretty sure
Councillor Sweet, Councillor Sweet, I don't think anything will be achieved by continuing this. I think you've made your point, and Councillor Austin has made the point. I don't think anything will be achieved by having a debate on this. I think you both made your position clear, and I think the questions that you both put have been answered. So once again, I'll ask Councillor Hawkins to comment, please.
Can I thank you, Mr. Chair, and I thank you for trying to prevent this becoming a political far left, far right debate, because the most important thing is the community safety partnership and how it works for our families and residents. And I know those issues are important, as we know, but the most important thing is to ensure that our families and those most vulnerable are getting the support that we all want them to get. As Nikki said, I think you can all tell from the reports from Becky and from Louisa, you can tell the enthusiasm these two ladies have got. I first met them properly about 2 years ago, and when we're actually back in the normal world, hopefully, and we can actually be in the same room as them, they ooze enthusiasm for this subject and for the partnership. And I think that's why they're so amazingly successful in getting external funding, because when they go out there, they can show how committed they are to the partnership. For a rural area like the South Hams, this is so important, and I think we really should congratulate them both on all the work that they do for us. The CPS have a normal annual meeting, and I remember going to it in Rattery. I was amazingly stressed. I couldn't find a car parking space because it was so busy, the meeting. But that meeting was really enthusiastic. It was exciting, and I'm hoping one day in the future we'll be able to have a similar meeting again, because it was just so enthusiastic and it was so good. It was really positive. So really, John, can I just thank them both for all the hard work and effort they do, and perhaps in January, February, we could have a further workshop with them to raise residents' concerns.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Hawkins. So there is a recommendation on the paper. I think the recommendation needs adding to. So I'd like to propose from the chair the following recommendation, starting with that the welcomes the contents of the annual report, and then to continue to say, and congratulates the partnership on obtaining funding for the Turning Corner programme. That's the first part of the recommendation. The second part is that arrangements be made for a meeting between the partnership and all members to allow a full discussion on the partnership's activities. And finally, that the partnership deliver to the council its annual local delivery plan once it has been agreed. So Darryl is putting this on the screen, and then right, okay. So the recommendation is on the screen. I propose that from the chair. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that, Chairman.
Thank you. Right. Are there any members of the panel who are who do not agree with the recommendation? Could they indicate in the chat box, please? If there's no if there's no opposition to the recommendation, I'll take it that the panel agree that recommendation. Mr. White, are you satisfied that the recommendation has been passed?
Thank you, Chair. There's nobody indicating their wish to vote against in the chat box, so those recommendations, all parts 1, 2 and 3 as per the screen, are therefore declared carried. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And Rebecca and Louisa, thank you very much indeed for the report, and thank you very much indeed for the presentation, and look forward to seeing you both in the new year. Thank you very much indeed.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, there's no rest for Louisa because we move on to the next item, which is the safeguarding policy. Councillor Hawkins, do you want to introduce this?
Bear with me. Yep, fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Louisa's back again. I'll leave the report, obviously, for Louisa to introduce properly. The safeguarding report is the second report that has been presented to the overview and scrutiny following an internal audit way back in 2017. In January 2020, it was requested by overview and scrutiny that this became an annual report. The report is accompanied by a new and revised safeguarding policy, which can be found as the appendix in the report pack. Amendments to the safeguarding policy are updates in central government legislation and in the inclusion of new policies such as staff domestic abuse policy and guidelines and concise details of safeguarding responsibilities at all levels of the authority. We've got an example where elected members can assist on page 33 of the report. Obviously, with COVID, it has brought new issues and challenges for us to overcome. And I would just like to thank the staff that, in my view, they have risen to that challenge very, very well. And I thank them for that. And I'll leave that now to Louisa.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Thank you. Louisa.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so as well as community safety, I'm also a specialist for safeguarding, and thank you for presenting the report. So just quickly want to run through some of the outcomes and outputs again in this report. As you can see, there are numerous outcomes which reach across the whole of the South Hams District Council area, and they include multiple partnerships and numerous staff members. So our aim really is to continue to encourage safeguarding to be everyone's responsibility. And I think you can see that we've demonstrated this through some of those, just some of the outcomes there, and the links we have with different partnerships and across our staff base, whether that's through our housing specialists and case management, through obviously community safety, and also we've had some queries again from our planners and people out and about in the community. This year has been an interesting year with regard safeguarding. Through the lockdown period, we saw sort of waves really of safeguarding referrals, and the changes were really interesting looking at that lockdown period. So initially, we received quite a few calls from members of the public and those involved in the community groups helping with older people, predominantly in the March-April time. And then as the weather got better and the windows and doors were opened, neighbours started making referrals and providing concerns to safeguarding champions around concerns for maybe young people or things that you could hear going on within the house. And we touched earlier on the exploitation and the groom now, meet later type approaches out of internet exploitation. which has obviously seen concerns. So back to schools in September, we're seeing an increase in referrals through schools. Obviously, that will have direct impact on social care based at Devon County, not necessarily ourselves, but just to say that within the South Hams area and community, we are seeing some of that. The breadth and depth of safeguarding awareness amongst staff and members continues to develop. We've worked with Andy Wilson in HR around further developing courses and making courses more available and able to be logged and demonstrated. And I believe next year we're starting a new programme, theme of the month type courses, and some of those will be mandatory, and some of those mandatory courses will be safeguarding courses for staff and members if you wish. The new policy, as Councillor Hawkins referred to, as part of your members pack, he highlighted the changes within that, just with regards to new legislation. I've also set out some of the responsibilities, so I think that it's more concise and clearer as to different layers of staff and members and what those responsibilities are. So yeah, any questions really?
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Louisa. I've just got a couple of questions. First of all, on page 27, item 5, where you deal with the training packages, etc. And you say members are recommended to support these training packages as mandatory for all staff and members to complete. Is this, so your recommendation as an officer is that you wish us as members to include that within our recommendation to the executive? Is that the case?
Yes, please, if you agree with that, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And just one other query on the matter of the policy on page 32, where it states under elected members, it says appointing a lead member for safeguarding, which sits under the theme of well-being. Presumably that is Councillor Hawkins at the moment, is it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Might members questions or comments? No. We have the recommendation on the screen. I'd like to propose that we add to the recommendation Louisa's recommendation that is set out at item 5 on page 27, is that we support we call for the training packages as being mandatory for all staff and members to complete.
Can I just come back in, Mr. Chair? I think that is very important.
Yes, yes. So that's being added to the recommendation. And Darryl is typing that in, so it should be on your screen. I'd like to propose that from the chair. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chairman.
Right. So once again, I'll ask for any members who do not support the recommendation to indicate in the chat box.
Just giving it a couple of seconds, Chair, but there's no one indicating on my screen that they're typing a reluctance not to support these recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
So this is carried then. Are you happy with that, Mr. White?
More than happy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay. We could then move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the draft recovery plan and the reports from the task and finish groups. We could just start this item with a brief verbal report from Mr. Powell on the position concerning the draft recovery plan. So, Mr. Powell, would you like to say a few words on that before we move on to the task and finish group items?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, morning members. Yeah, just a brief update on where we are with the recovery and renewal plan. I think clearly everyone knows at the moment we've never actually moved out of response into recovery. We remain at the moment within the lockdown, and as a result, our priority is very much focusing on continue to support the business sector, the wider community through COVID compliance, looking after vulnerable individuals, and the role of the local authority, the members and officers in terms of community leadership. So rightly, that's where our focus has been. When we look back at what the objectives were for the recovery plan, I'll précis them, but there was 4 key ones. Essentially, it was bringing services back online to deliver the services that had temporarily stopped. Secondly, to secure the short-term and longer-term financial sustainability of the council. Thirdly, was to reinstate the democratic decision-making process. And the 4th one was to build back better. If we take the first 3, essentially, we've delivered on most of those. As a council, we're in a strong financial position. The majority of services have been delivered, whether they're being delivered virtually or in a COVID face-to-face method. They're all operating, and the democratic decision-making process is being reinstated, albeit through virtual mediums, as we all know. So those 3 areas have been delivered well in terms of how we've recovered. The 4th one, the build back better, is obviously an ongoing challenge. We're still not entirely sure of the economic and the social climate we'll be operating with in the future. And so that work continues. The next step is to refine the actual recovery and renewal plan. Members will recall from the workshops and the work that's come back to ONS in the past that we had multiple actions within that plan, some of which, it's fair to say, are very much around recovery, some of which are more to do with existing work of the council. So we're going through a process at the moment to refine those actions into business as usual, where we already have the service being delivered, and tweaking how we do it, work that perhaps sits better under the emerging housing strategy, work that would sit better under climate change and biodiversity strategy. So we're trying to pull those out and redistribute those to those existing or emerging work streams, and refining the plan down to something that is very much focused on recovery. And that will be the basis of report for the executive going forward. This has always been seen as an interim position while we move towards a new corporate strategy as proposed by the leader at the executive a month or so ago. So at this stage, that's where we are. I think what I would say is that one of the key areas of recovery is obviously the economy and the place and environment cells that we've identified in the strategy, and will be key to our new corporate strategy. And to enable us to deliver that work, we've now actually brought in our new head of placemaking, and at your request, Chair, Sarah Gibson is available and was going to just give a very brief intro and introduce herself to the members. So if I can ask you to introduce Sarah, Chair. Thank you.
All right. So Sarah, thank you very much indeed for coming along to the meeting. If you'd like to introduce yourself and just say a few words, that would be appreciated.
Thank you very much for that, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Sarah Gibson, and as Drew has said, I am the new head of placemaking. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here. So I'd just like to give you a little bit of a short background to my career. I am a Plymouthian. I have made both the South Hams and West Devon areas my playground, if you will. I know them well. I'm very passionate about the areas, and I just think they're fantastic. So I'm delighted to be working to their benefit. I've worked in Plymouth and across the Southwest in a number of different roles. My background very quickly is in a whole range of PR, marketing, program management, project management, and in most recent years, community engagement, business engagement, and place making. I was a place manager at Plymouth Waterfront for 10 years, created a business improvement district there, the Plymouth Waterfront Partnership, and I successfully renewed that. for a further 5 years. So in total, I ran an 8-year business improvement district, which continues today. We achieved many projects, including marketing, inward investment, bringing together, joining places together with a series of trails and tourism schemes. And I'm very pleased to say that they're still continuing and thriving today. One of my key skills is business engagement, and as Drew has said, the focus on recovery is really important for everyone, but we absolutely must look at our towns and villages, and particularly our high streets, and making sure that the businesses continue to get through and survive beyond this COVID impact period that we're in. Many people ask me what placemaking actually is, so just a little bit on that. We must make sure it's purposeful, it's community-led, and it has a number of work streams which engage businesses and the community in participative design. So that's through strategic planning, such as the joint local plan, the neighbourhood planning, and so on. Tourism, infrastructure such as broadband, a whole host of travel schemes, so cycling, road, rail, a business engagement, as I've already said, that is going to be a core part of my work and our team. So far, we've been teaming up with colleagues and officers across Devon County Council, Plymouth City Council. I've met with the Chief Exec of the Heart of the Southwest LEP, and I've sought his support going forward, so fingers crossed, we'll see. We're working with Team Devon, and we'll be working together to create a placemaking strategy over coming months, and I've asked David Ralph of the LEP to actually help us inform that strategy as well for our areas, and he's agreed to do so. I'm really looking forward to working with you all, and I will be reaching out to you between now and Christmas, so I shall look forward to speaking with each of you, and I'm very much looking forward to presenting to you in due course. Thank you very much for your time, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Drew. So, members, are there any questions that you wish to put to either Drew or Sarah? No, if that's the case, well, thank you very much indeed for your reports. So we'll move on to the report and recommendation from the Task and Finish group dealing with localities. So I'll ask Councillor Thomas to introduce the report and deal with the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So, referring to the report that members will have seen as a second agenda item, I'd like to talk, if I may first please, a little bit about the background. So there's a slight numbering issue on the report, for which I apologise, but if you go to page 3, actions of the group, there's a relevance to this in terms of the background. So members will be aware that this Task and Finish group actually started in late 2019. Now, at that point, we were looking at the locality service with officers around the roles of the locality engagement officer and the mobile localities officer. And we did quite a little bit of work at the back end of 2019 into early 2020 in looking at their setup, their job roles, what they do. Now, that process was caught up slightly in the extended leadership team restructure. And then, of course, as we were about to make our report, COVID came along. So actually, this group really has, in essence, been running since the 13th of October this year, when we were able to meet after the first lockdown. Now, at that point, in many ways, we moved into the point that Mr. Powell was referring to in the recovery plan, item 4, Build Back Better, because everything this report covers is based on the experiences of the way the locality service operated during the pandemic. Now, if you were to go back and look at the recommendations, which I want to talk you through, and I know Mrs. Moody will be supporting me on this one as well, a classic example is that the first recommendation would simply never have existed under the Task and Finish report had it not been for COVID. So the experience that came out of COVID with the localities officers being out and about has led entirely to the first recommendation point. we as Task and Finish panel members spent a lot of time working with Mrs Moody, Mr Easthope and also Mr Molyneux, looking at the experience of COVID during the period of March to July, August 2020, and discovered that the locality service, by being proactive, by being out and about, by being able to engage with residents and also with the large number of tourists that we had during the summer when lockdown finished, meant that there was a far greater visible presence, with officers being able to deal with issues and resolve them as they arose. And we received lots of anecdotal evidence back to us that that had been an extremely popular and well-received service. So in terms of building back better, that actually fits in with the first part of the recommendation. But over the tourist season, if you like, because if you look, it isn't just the summer, it's actually Easter and the October half term when we have a large number of tourists in the district, there will be a 7-day-a-week locality service. Now, clearly there are operational issues in terms of rotas and the like, but we as a panel were reassured that that would work. And so that is the first point of the recommendation. You will then see the second point of the recommendation, creating a single point of contact for ward members. In many ways, this comes back to the reason why the Task and Finish was set up in the first place, because there was a lack of understanding on behalf of quite a few members, and maybe even some officers, on who did what and where and how. So we've done a lot of work with Mrs Moody, Mr Easthope and Mr Molyneux on looking at how the various roles within localities, and indeed within the wider scope after the extended leadership team restructure of waste and environmental services as well, dovetailing in together, and how they will work as a larger team. That fits in with item 3, a new locality team structure. And you will see that there are some clearly defined operational roles that which we as a Task and Finish group have seen, supporting basically not just members, but also, where relevant, the work of community groups. There was some good experiences that members were able to feed back after the cluster services. And while we may not need clusters into the future, the idea of being able to support community groups where necessary. I mean, this isn't as we had originally when Localities was first set up. This isn't a case of an officer attending a coffee morning. This is a wider assisting of community groups that are trying to help to deliver services across the district. And it dovetails with the later Task and Finish that we'll hear about on community engagement. So there's a lot of joined up thinking around this. I think probably the most important thing to say is that it's been exceedingly useful for members of Overview and Scrutiny to have the opportunity to work closely with officers and with the Executive Lead, Councillor Hopwood, on this. We've been able to make our suggestions, they've been listened to, they've been adopted where relevant, and I commend this report as such to ONS. Mrs Moody, did you want to comment on some of the details?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Thomas. Good morning, members. Yeah, I think it's really important to note, Councillor Thomas and everybody else on the group here, that the locality service hasn't been reviewed since its inception in 2015, and has really only ever operated during core hours, so that's your 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I think it's important to note as well here that we have had input from officers within the localities team around their capacity, and actually the feedback that we got there was around their sort of lack of identity about what the service is trying to achieve, and also as Councillor Thomas has alluded to, there was concerns about the role of the LEO and that being quite similar to the elected member. As you've alluded to, Councillor Thomas, yes, the landscape in which we're operating has changed quite significantly, and obviously our response to the pandemic this year has been a success. And I think that, like you say, that engagement and that being able to work with our community groups and facilitate their work will absolutely come out of this if the proposed recommendations are adopted. I think it's important to note, you said yes about the summer working and the success of that, and I think one of the outcomes from the summer working was that officers felt empowered to be able to resolve issues on the ground. They had that additional support which they don't have now, and we would like to sort of work with the officers to capitalise on that and really push that forward, so that less issues are being fed back to members, but more actual successes and how and that feedback about how our communities are working. And I think the other important thing here is around that member engagement. We absolutely recognise, and the Task and Finish group did, the importance of that role. And I think that's the point in the recommendations here about that clearly defined role, and being able to give that support to the elected member. I don't think there's anything else that I've missed there, Councillor Thomas.
No, I think only that there was a commitment moving forward. I think from an IT point of view, to actually having something on the desktop for councillors where they can actually physically see what had happened within their ward. If a matter had been raised with a localities officer that they weren't directly involved in because they didn't need to be directly involved, then they would still have oversight of that and they would know what was going on within their ward. I think that's correct, isn't it?
I think that's correct, Councillor Thomas. Yeah, I think that links in with the wider FIT project. Yeah.
Can I thank you both for the presentation? I also thank the members of the Task and Finish group and the officers involved in this for the excellent report, and thank you all. Thank you for what you've done to put this together. Thank you very much indeed. I have Councillor Baldry. Would you like to speak?
Good. Yeah, I need advice, please, Chair. That this, of course, is a recommendation to the executive. And do you want me to hold my fire, because I'm not a member of this panel, and ask my questions and make the points at the executive meeting, or do you want me to say anything now?
I'm happy for you to speak now.
Right. Just a couple of things. First of all, can I join in the tributes to what the localities team during the period when the public, too many members of the public were behaving absolutely disgracefully, who descended on our beaches and our car parks, and I'm most grateful for the localities team to really rearrange their ways of working and go out and deal with that. So thank you very much to the localities team. Thank you, Mrs. Moody, and all the members of the team for responding so very quickly. I have got a couple of detailed points which I shall raise at the executive, which perhaps I can bring up now. If people can have the answers ready for the executive. I noticed that we're going to be finding a 7-day week localities service, Easter through till October, and October half term. What about February half term? We haven't had February half term yet, but I suspect that if people are able to travel, then it may get pretty bad during February half term. And secondly, reading the recommendation like it is, and it is now a public document, I would not want the public in general to think we were not going to be operating outside those hours during the winter months. I think it would be the wrong impression to get to people that if camper vans are turning up where they ought not to be and so on, that there will not be anyone to deal with it. So perhaps that we could add a few words into there to say, and at other periods, or something like that. And Chairman, recommendation 3 says implementing a new locality team structure. I don't know what that locality team structure is. I think we ought to at least see what the structure is for the localities and the changes. And just as a specific example, I have not the faintest idea who my MLO is. I think I would like to have a name. When this was first set up back 5 years ago, we were brought into the council chamber. We met our localities officers and the mobility localities officer. I think there should be a bit more contact of that nature. Chairman, thank you for your indulgence. I shall raise these matters at the right place if you agree for this to go forward to the executive.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. Councillor Mackay. Councillor Mackay. No.
Sorry, yeah, no, I'm sorry. It took me a while to press the right button. It sort of follows on from Councillor Baldry's comments just now. One of the things that came out of the Task and Finish group was a proposed structure. Now, I appreciate that this is not cast in iron as yet, but the notion whereby environmental health, waste, localities as it currently is constituted and these various other teams become essentially one unit with one point of contact. I mean, there seemed to be an awful lot of sense in that, in terms of delivering service, but also internal working efficiency, and providing a well-identified route into the organisation for members to resolve problems. I just like to sort of emphasise that was one of the outcomes of this task and finish group, and I welcome sort of Sarah's comments on what is being proposed. For the benefit of the members of ONS. Thanks.
Thank you. So, Mr. Mullen, you wish to comment?
Yes, Chair, and thank you. And I think my comments should address Councillor Baldry's and Councillor McKay's comments, which is that we've had discussions, obviously, with the task and finish group and come up with some suggestions. We're still finalising those. And we would hope that when the executive consider those, they are fully costed out and we have a clear structure. And obviously at that point, if executive recommend those to council, then we can absolutely move forward and share that structure with members. So at this point, it was, we've kept the recommendations at this point relatively high level whilst we finalise all the detail. So I hope that addresses the concerns from Councillor Baldry and Councillor McKay.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Councillor Thomas, do you want to respond at all?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, only to say that the members were able to deal through a series of slides and through our meetings with some quite operational information that we appreciate doesn't come to ONS because we are charged with strategy rather than operational matters. All I would do is do my best to reassure members and hope that my task and finish colleagues would agree that it was clear from the discussions and the slides that we saw that an enormous amount of thought had gone into this document. And I reiterate, it was particularly gratifying that officers were very open to suggestions. On Councillor Baldry's specific point about February half-term, we did talk about February half-term. I think the decision was left that until it was clear that we were going to be receiving large numbers of visitors at a time when it's pretty cold and miserable, we wouldn't necessarily enact February half-term, but as and when it became necessary. I think one of the points about recommending and going with this report is that it gives a resilience and a flexibility to localities which is set in stone for members to agree with. That means issues like that can be dealt with quite quickly once this is up and running.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Thomas, would you like to propose the recommendation?
I would very much like to propose this recommendation to members. Thank you, Chair.
And could I ask for it to be seconded as a member of your group?
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So the recommendation is before you, members, and bearing in mind what Councillor Thomas mentioned and the comments from Mr. Molyneux, is that this recommendation, when it goes to the executive, will be supplemented with further information. So the recommendation has been proposed and seconded. Are there any members who are opposed to the recommendation? If you are, could you please indicate in the chat box, please?
Just giving it a couple of seconds, Chair, but again, I can't see anyone typing a reluctance to support those.
No.
So I therefore think, Chair, we are in unanimous approval territory. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thomas, and thank you, Mrs. Moody. Right, we'll move on to the next task and finish group, a report, and that I'll ask Councillor Rose to introduce that report. Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me okay? I'm joined by mobile.
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic, great. Unfortunately, frustratingly, because my device has lost internet, I'm unable to actually have the report in front of me, but I do know it, and I'm very, very happy to recommend this report to ONS. Yeah, mainly the main thing I'd like to say is just to really express massive gratitude to Neil Hawke and Leslie Crocker for being the officers helping out with this, and the fantastic work that they've done behind the scenes for this report, and for the draft plan to be where it's at, and the work that they do in their roles, and also for all of the input from the members of the group. It felt like there was some really great, really high quality input from various different members to bring us to where we're at now. And the second thing I just really want to highlight is that, as you'll be aware from seeing the report, that this strategy is very much a draft. If it receives support from ONS today, then it'll go through executive, and then it will be essentially the sort of starting point for officers to finalise. I believe there will be some more work on it also in advance to the executive meeting. Unfortunately, I lost my email account not long after this report was sent in, and haven't managed to get it back yet. So I'm hoping I haven't missed any important emails, but I don't think so. I believe there are a number of recommendations there, which I wholeheartedly endorse, and happy to answer any questions from any members about this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hawke, do you wish to say a few words?
I think just to add to what Councillor Rose has said, and to give some additional context for the rest of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, an initial workshop was held with the Local Government Association, who provided us some insight into consultation and engagement best practice. So the document presented to you today is very much based on best practice from the LGA. As Councillor Rose said, members of the Task and Finish all considered best practice from a number of different local authorities, because consultation and engagement, what we didn't want to do is reinvent the wheel. And that has all come together into the document in front of you. So I think nothing further to add.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to really raise a question on why on earth it is that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is actually even looking at this, and what the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is here for. Because my understanding is that Overview and Scrutiny is there to look at the decisions that are made by the executive. And we are not actually here to set policy. And my concern with the Overview and Scrutiny Committee as a whole, particularly with your chairing it as well, is that you've used this as a template and a tool to set your own policy. So what Councillor Rose has just told us is that this is a strategy. This is a draft strategy that you want to put forward to the executive. Well, Overview and Scrutiny is not here to set strategy. We are not here to decide policy. That's not the function of this committee. That's not what we should be doing. And as chair of the committee, you should know that. Now, Mr. Hawke, who just spoke to us a minute ago, was talking about this being a best practice idea. I'm all for best practice. I'm all for establishing strategy. But this committee is Overview and Scrutiny. We're supposed to be looking at ideas that the executive have come up with and the actions of the council, not come out with policy, strategy and best practice. And my whole problem with this item on the agenda is I don't even understand why the heck we're looking at it. This is not the function of this committee whatsoever. And I think what's happened is it's become politicised, and you as chair are using it as a method of actually lobbying to get your own views through, and this is what the opposition are doing on this committee, is using it as a committee to lobby to get your own views through, and this is an ideal example of how you've done that. That is not what the function of this committee is here for, and I'd like to see the committee get back to actually looking at things that the council needs to look at. For example, bin collection has been a major thing that we've had to deal with recently. I don't know about the other councillors on the meeting here, but my whole time over the course of the last month has been taken up with bin collection. Not an Overview and Scrutiny. We're not even looking at it. What we're looking at is strategy, policy, best practices. I understand that there's a political agenda here and you're putting yourself forward, and I don't necessarily even blame you for that. But I think that this committee has actually become dysfunctional, and that is the fault of the chair.
Chairman, could I say something to that?
No, Councillor Rose, please, I will respond to this. Councillor Austin, can I just remind you that, and this was made clear when the overview and scrutiny was invited to deal with producing a draft consultation and engagement strategy. This came about as a result of a discussion that I had with the leader of the council, who invited overview and scrutiny to develop a draft consultation and engagement strategy as a recommendation to the executive. So this was instigated as a result of discussions between myself and the leader of the council. That's number one. Number two, the remit of overview and scrutiny is not just restricted to the matter of scrutiny, that it is also within its remit to assist the council in policy development. And this is an example of where it is taken up, where it has developed a strategy at the invitation of the leader of the council. And it was this, and you were in attendance at the meeting when this panel set about setting up a task and finish group. And I can't recall you making any protest at the time. If you did, I can't remember it. The fact of the matter is, I'd also point out that at each and every meeting of this task and finish group, it was attended by Councillor Hopwood, the executive member responsible for this area, and she made contributions towards the strategy, and she played an important part in helping the task and finish group develop this strategy. So I could just make it clear, this is not something that has happened as a result of the opposition seeking to become political. That is far from the truth. So I just make that point. Now I see that Councillor Pearce wishes to speak. So Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just wanted to endorse what you've said, that we did ask you to do a bit of policy development on this, and so I do support what you've just said, and I think that this task and finish group was properly set up and has done the job it was asked to do. But on that, Chairman, could I just add one thing, please? I don't notice any reference in your report to the comms review, which the LGA did for us just over 12 months ago, I think. So I'd be interested to know why that wasn't considered as part of this review. But I do thank you for the work you've done. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Molyneux.
Thank you, Chair. And only to reiterate yours and Councillor Pearce's comments for the benefit of the record, that this was a task and finish group that was set up in discussion with yourself and the leader and the executive to look at policy development, and that is within the remit of overview and scrutiny's role. So just to clarify that for the wider membership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, in a good moment, may I make a comment? Unfortunately, I don't have access to the chat.
Yes, Councillor Rose.
Thank you. Yeah, just to kind of add a tiny bit more context as well from what I said at the beginning, which is that really, I mean, I was very excited to have this role as chairman of this task and finish group, because, you know, we're in real changing times right now. We're in unprecedented times. There are changes to society which are happening due to COVID, due to all kinds of things which have never happened before in the way that it is happening now. The kinds of things that we're facing as a council is many unprecedented things, and therefore the area of community engagement really has never been as important as it is today. Like, you know, our ability to be able to communicate effectively with our residents and to take on their ideas is, I believe personally, has never been more important, which is why I was so excited to take up this role. And, you know, I think that, you know, part of the reason that this group was set up was the fact that it was identified that, you know, we had made certain consultations which had received a very, you know, small amount of return from the public, and that there were, due to a couple of different issues, there were feelings from the public that the council wasn't being as open as it could have been, you know, without any fault to anyone, and really actually just because of a lack of this kind of strategy that many other councils, as we found out in our process of creating this document, we found that, you know, many other councils had done this piece of work, and so the kind of, you know, what I'm wanting to say here really is just that I feel like this is a really exciting moment for the council in when we can adopt this plan, that it's going to really, what I hope is that it'll give officers a really important tool to be able to use in order to direct their energies in creating and fostering existing relationships with the community, so that we're able as a council to feel that we're really taking on board what the community is saying, that we're able to communicate really clearly with the community, and that the community feel that they're being listened to and that they're being communicated well with. So for that reason, I think it's very relevant that it's the Overview and Scrutiny panel that have created this, and I'm personally really hoping that it gets through here and it comes through executive without any hitches, and really looking forward to seeing it in its final form, and really hope that it will be of use to the officers, which is one of its primary functions, is that it's able to give steer from the members to the officers, and able to give, you know, put an arrow in the bow of the officers that they can do the work that they want to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Baldry.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Austin, in his words, mentioned the waste review, and if you look at your annual programme, which is coming up later, listed down there is waste round review coming under items considered for scheduling, and I don't want to interfere with the work of your committee, Chairman, but I would like to suggest that should come to the January meeting, if your panel are happy with that. And on the subject, everyone is aware that the FCC round review, which they devised, has not worked perfectly. There have been lots of problems, but this is not the occasion to go through all of that, but I want to pay tribute in particular to the in-house team of Jane Savage, Hayley and Natalie, who are working flat out to deal with the problems. The numbers are significantly reduced, but it is not perfect. And on Monday of this week, I had a conversation with Mr. Molyneux and Mr. Longdon, who is the operations director for FCC, and we are working flat out to. We know it hasn't worked properly. Things have gone wrong, but it will be put right, and it needs to be put right. And I'll make a plea to you, Chairman, and to the members that we can have your support with the public while we are dealing with this problem. Chairman, and can I just say, during Councillor Austin's ramble, I did actually look at the item on the agenda, and I can see nothing whatsoever which could be described as party political in that. The only person who is making party political capital at the moment is Councillor Austin, and I'm sorry, Chairman, I think he's made a complete fool of himself.
Thank you, Councillor Bob. Can I just say that as far as the waste issues are concerned, that is going to be dealt with in our future work programme. So rather than us deal with that now, I'll be dealt with later on in the agenda. Could I just ask Mr. Hawke, could you just deal with the matter that was raised by Councillor Pearce concerning the omission that she mentioned?
So the omission of the work of the LGA comms review, the LGA comms review that we commissioned probably about 18 months ago didn't specifically focus on community engagement. It was more around our organisational comms strategy and resources. So how we can enable our comms team to focus on that strategic communications function. There will be elements, and as we develop a delivery plan for the consultation and engagement strategy with the lead executive member, there will of course be elements within that we need to consider, because consultation and engagement takes resource. So we need to look at how that team deliver on consultation and engagement. But in terms of developing the strategy, I don't think there was a significant amount in that review that would have been helpful to the task and finish.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Hawke. Thank you. So there is a recommendation before the panel. Councillor Rose, would you like to propose the recommendation?
Yes, please. So moved, Chair.
Do I have a seconder for the for this recommendation?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much indeed. So the recommendation is before the panel. I'll follow the normal procedure. If there's any member who opposes the recommendation, could they please indicate in the chat box, please?
Thank you, Chair. There is nobody typing in the box, so we'll take that as unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So we could move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the preparation for Live West's attendance at a future panel meeting. Just to confirm that Live West have been requested to attend a future meeting of the panel, and to give them some idea as to what the areas that we wish them to cover in their report to us. They will be attending to answer questions and to address their report. I thought it would be helpful if members at this meeting, or alternatively, say within the next 7 days, indicate the type of the areas that you wish Live West to cover. So I see that Councillor Sweet is declaring an interest. Councillor Sweet, could you just be a bit more specific as to the interest you're declaring, please?
Yeah, I have 2 tenancies with Live West.
Okay, can that be noted then, Mr. White?
Yeah, I don't know if there was a declarations of interest at the beginning, or whether that was when I was offline at the beginning of the meeting. I wanted to declare it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure that's in the minutes. Thank you. If I can just, while I've got the floor, Chair, can I put a comment in the chat box just to confirm that when we published the agenda, the work programme showed this item is to be confirmed for the next agenda, but we've since had confirmation from Mr. Crawford that he is able to attend that meeting, so it is definitely on for the afternoon of the January session. Thank you, Chair.
So I would invite members to come forward with the proposals that I mentioned a moment ago. I see that Councillor Austin wishes to speak. Councillor Austin, is this to do with the item 11 of the agenda?
Yes, Chairman.
Right. What would you like to speak, please?
Well, I can only reiterate what I've said before, is that I'm not really quite sure what this has to do with the Overview and Scrutiny Board. I don't know why we're spending our time on this. And I also would like to say that Councillor Baldry, I don't believe Councillor Baldry is actually on this committee, is he?
No, he isn't.
No. And yet we seem to have heard an awful lot from Councillor Baldry so far, who seems to interject and has currently told me that I've currently made a fool of myself. And actually what we're looking at here is yet again another attempt on behalf of the Liberal Democrats to put forward their policy through overview and scrutiny. As we've seen in the past, what happens is that it doesn't really make much of an impact, and it just wastes councillors' time. I'm sure Councillor Baldry will have something else to say about that, because he likes to interject and talk on this committee on a regular basis. I can't remember me doing the same on things that he's chaired.
Councillor Austin, could I see that Councillor Pearce wishes to speak, but before she does, can I just mention that in my discussions with Councillor Pearce, it was we discussed the one of the duties of the panel is to have such discussions with organisations such as Live West, and in fact I think it was her suggestion that this is what we do. So I'll leave it to Councillor Pearce to perhaps add to what I've just said.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, indeed. It's been a long time since Live West has been before the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and it is an important task of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to scrutinise not only what the lead members do and what officers are up to in the council, but also to scrutinise our partner work bodies. So I entirely endorse this. I think the critical test will be whether members of your panel, Chairman, ask the right questions of Mr. Crawford when he turns up, because I can tell you he's not somebody who, who's very willing to answer questions from previous experience. So I wish you luck with that. But I entirely endorse this, and I think that it is turning the Overview and Scrutiny panel round to what it should have been doing since the beginning of this council, instead of man-marking, as we like to call it, or at least as our Chief Executive likes to call it, the executive members. And I absolutely welcome this approach, I have to say.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Sweet.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification, Councillor Pearce. I live in a Live West home, so I have a tenancy and I have a garage as well. So I also got, pretty hands-on, see some of the sort of workings of Live West, so I'd really welcome this. And another member's recently mentioned to me sort of about grounds maintenance, that they have some issues or some questions for Live West not in Totnes Ward, in another ward. I attend lots of homeless and housing meetings with the housing team, and Live West are obviously such a close partnership that I really welcome this meeting for a variety of reasons, and I'll pop some questions over as soon as. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweet. Mr. Molyneux.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to reiterate to the committee and the wider membership that it is a role of Overview and Scrutiny to key partner to review and scrutinise key partners and stakeholders and indeed contractors. And it was my suggestion to the chair that we put this as an agenda item today, so that what my experience has been over the last sort of 12 months is our external partners or contractors come along to these meetings and they say what they want to talk about. And I think it's really important that we started thinking about the forthcoming presentation, so that we can actually get members engaged in that beforehand, so that actually we get real value out of that presentation from Live West. And I was just going to say, Chair, would it be appropriate to ask Mrs. Blake to talk a little bit about the Live West at the moment, if that's okay?
Yes, okay, yes.
Thank you, members. Yes, obviously Live West are, as Councillor Sweet alluded to, are one of our most significant partners, being our Tor Homes as was, and prior to Tor Homes, of course, a number of their properties actually belonged to us at Southampton District Council. So actually, it's a great opportunity for you to question their current work and plans for the future, on their new build schemes, on their existing stock, what they might be planning to do around regeneration, their rent arrears, some of their responses to COVID, and actually how that might have impacted on some of their tenants with regards to their repairs. And also some of their climate change commitments as an organisation, what they are planning to do, and how we might be able to work in partnership with them in future. as well as some of those issues that I'm sure that when you were on your campaign trails were brought to your attention by your constituents around the repairs, the antisocial behaviour potentially, and some of the issues on their larger estates. So it's a great opportunity, and the more we're able to submit in advance, the better the quality of the answers we'll be able to get. So it's a great opportunity to really hold them to account and scrutinise their work.
Thank you very much indeed, Mrs. Blake. I see that Councillor Austin wishes to raise a point of order. Councillor Thomas wants to speak before him, but I will take Councillor Austin's point of order. Councillor Austin.
Can I just clarify? I don't know if Daryl's here, so he can clarify this just again about Councillor Baldry earlier on when he interjected. Is it the case, because I seem to be confused as to who's on this committee and who isn't, given the different comments that are coming from different people. Is it the case that you know, somebody who's very prominent in the Liberal Democrats has the capacity just to come on and sort of participate in debate regardless and comment on different issues that have been made? And I wonder if Daryl could just clarify that. Who is actually capable of interjecting and speaking on this committee? Because it seems to me that it's kind of like preference is given to anybody who wants to chip in.
Before I ask Mr. White to answer that, can I just say that all those people who want to speak, who are members of this council, are entitled to speak. And I've not stopped any one person speaking. So I'll pass over to Mr. White just to clarify the position as to who can speak at the overview and scrutiny panel meetings. Mr. White.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm, members, any member of the council is able to attend and partake at these meetings. The one differential between being a panel member and not, if you like, is a vote at the table. So any non-panel member can take part in the meeting. And of course, Councillor Baldry is a lead member as well, so often he will be invited directly to attend to introduce agenda items within his portfolio area. So just to reiterate, members, any member of the council can attend and partake at formal member meetings. Indeed, not just ONS, but also executive audit. So as a formal member meeting of the council, any member can partake. Thank you.
And is there no limit?
Sorry, Councillor Austin, you've had your question answered. I'm going to move on, and so.
Well, hang on a minute, Chair. No, I haven't, because my follow-on question is there no limit to how often someone can speak?
Councillor Austin, your question has been answered.
No, I have got another point of order, Chairman. I'd like to raise another point of order.
No. We're dealing with the agenda item, and this is.
I'd like to raise another point of order in return, because I'd like clarification from Mr. White.
You're asking questions rather than raising points of order.
I am raising a point of order, Chair. Raising a point of order.
Under what? Councillor Austin.
What I'd like to ask Mr. White is how many times can a different member from the council continue making comments on a committee when they're not on the committee themselves? How many times can they interject and constantly make comments about what's going on the committee? Is there no limit? Because I seem to have a problem actually getting a word in on this committee, and I'm on it. So can a councillor just, make comments on every single item, and there's no limit to it?
Would you like to come back, Chair, on that one?
Yeah, Mr. White, yes.
Ultimately, it's the discretion of the Chair how many times he enables a member to come back. I know that since we've been in the world of remote meetings, I think every chair of every committee has in effect gone down the chat box in the order which items are raised forward. But I mean, ultimately, it's the matter of the Chair to how many times he or she allows a member to come back. I mean, it's slightly different at full council meetings because we do have the rule where questions are unlimited, but we have one opportunity per debate. But that has never, in recent times, been applied, be it at executive, be it at ONS or any other committee of the council.
Well, I believe Councillor Baldry wants to make another comment. Councillor Baldry seems to want to speak again, Chairman. Are you going to interject and actually allow Councillor Baldry to speak, since I'm on the committee and he isn't, and yet again he is speaking on this committee? Would you like to invite him to speak
Chairman,
again?
I withdraw my request to speak. Councillor.
Good. I think we've heard more than enough from Councillor Baldry, who's made a bit of a fool of himself.
Councillor Austin, please. Councillor Thomas.
Chairman, could I Could I register my wish to make a comment, please?
No. I'm going down the list.
I know. I understand that I can't get to the chat box. I'm just registering my wish.
I will come to you in a moment, Councillor Rose.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman. On Live West agenda item, I'd be very interested to hear from Live West in their report on how, through their ordinary operational duties around being present on housing sites, repairs and the like, how that dovetailed in with COVID community work, whether they were able, through their ordinary course of duties, to liaise with local communities on residents, particularly elderly residents, they may not be concerned about.
Thank you. Can that be noted, please, Mr. White?
Noted. Thank you, Chair.
Right.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Reeve.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to ask, you said you wanted us to give questions or have questions ready. So who do we send those questions to?
Well, what I propose is that first of all, any questions be sent to Mr. White.
Okay.
But I also propose that after this meeting, Mr. White send an email to all members, not just members of this panel, inviting them to come forward with questions to put, or areas that you wish Live West to deal with in their report. So it will be, I made a request at this meeting, but that will be repeated in an email, not just to members of the panel, but to all members, and that from that we will then inform Live West as to the areas we wish them to cover in their presentation.
So they're going to answer those questions in their presentation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully. Well, yeah. We'll try and get them to answer the questions.
Thank you.
So, if there are no other comments or questions, Mr. White, can I ask that after this meeting, you send an email to all members, not just members of the panel, along the lines that I proposed a moment ago?
Will do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed.
Chairman, may I make a comment, please?
Sorry?
May I make a comment, please?
Oh, yes. Sorry, Councillor Rose. Sorry. Yes, Councillor Rose.
No worries. Apologies that I keep on jumping in, but as I'm not able to access the chat.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to, this isn't to do with that agenda item, so it actually works, but I just wanted to say, and I just really understand, of course, any member of this panel would wish in any way possible to, make clarifications about what the roles or what the role of this panel is, and of course to address any perceived issues. But I just wonder if perhaps in future we could, either address those issues by email outside of the meeting or at a particular time in the meeting, because I think we've probably spent about 15 minutes of this meeting answering various different comments on what the role of overview and scrutiny is and various questions, and I just, it's already 12:10, so I'm just asking that perhaps in future we could make those kind of clarifications either outside of the meeting or at a particular time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Thank you. If we could then move on to the last...
Sorry, Chair, have you not seen my comments in the chat box?
It has only just appeared in my chat box, Councillor Austin. Are you addressing the matter on the agenda?
I'm addressing the comments that were just made by Councillor Rose, which
no,
you
I'm sorry, but I'm not going to have. I'm not going to have a debate between.
Sorry,
you
Councillor Birchby, you didn't interrupt Councillor Rose when he was making those comments.
Councillor Austin, could you please desist and let's move on to the final
I
item.
will not desist on a point of order, Chair. This is a very... I have to make a point. I would like to make a point in return from Councillor Rose's comments.
I would wish Mr. Fairburn, as the monitoring officer, I'd ask him to give advice, because I think you're disrupting this meeting unnecessarily, Councillor Austin. So, Mr. Fairburn, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Clearly, this is a political forum, but equally, all members must show other members respect. And it is up to the chairman to manage the meeting. The chairman has indicated his view. And obviously, if the behaviour continues, then obviously the chairman is in his right to suspend the meeting. Clearly, we don't want to end up down that route, but it is a case of all members must show other members respect. This is, after all, a public meeting, and members of the public are gaining a perception of the council through the conduct of its members and the conduct of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fairbairn. Thank you very much indeed. If I could move on to the last item on the agenda, which is the work programme. There has been the matter of waste issues that has cropped up, and Councillor Baldry touched on that, and also Councillor Austin touched on that. Prior to this meeting, I met with Mr. Molyneux, and we discussed including the matter of waste issues on the work programme. In other words, for it to be dealt with at our next meeting on the 14th of January, and arrangements are being made for a report to be prepared, and at the meeting the report will be presented not only by the executive member responsible, but also the officers, and also the contractor will be invited to come along to the meeting as well. So that I propose that we add that to the work programme and it be included in the meeting on the 14th of January. Mr. Molyneux, you wish to comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And as Councillor Baldry said, we've had that conversation with the Operations Director of FCC. I would envisage the report to cover three main areas, which is a review of the round changes that have just happened, FCC's response to the problems that we've encountered, and then third, and probably the most important for me, is plans to ensure that this doesn't happen again when the service changes happen in March. So they're the three areas that we will be focusing on, myself and the executive member with FCC, and that's what we'll be looking to present to members on January the 14th.
Thank you. So as far as the remainder of the work programme is concerned, you'll notice that there are items to be considered for scheduling. As you are all aware, the officers are under pressure at the moment as a result of the COVID crisis, and in some cases resources are limited. What I'm proposing is that the items that to be considered for scheduling, that I, together with the Vice Chair, Councillor Smurden, meet with the officers in the near future in order to discuss with them the scheduling of those items that are at the foot of the draft work programme, and seek to bring as many forward as possible, but bearing in mind the problem or the limitation on resources. So that is, I'd like to propose that from the chair. I've got Councillor Smurden. Do you want to add to what I've just said?
Well, I heard what Mr. Molyneux, as he spelt out the ways in which he wanted to go through it, and I was hoping that he was going to say that we would focus on how the lessons to be learnt from what we've just been through, for the imposition or the bringing forward of the new round, the new procedures. So I was very pleased to hear that that's what we were going to be doing.
Thank you, Councillor Austin.
Yeah, I'd like to come back to this issue over the bins, Chairman, and the waste collection, which I'm sure is pressing on, most councillors' mind, given what I said earlier on, which is that over the course of the last month, it has primarily been waste collection that has been a problem in terms of council. It hasn't been tabled on the agenda for overview and scrutiny, and I believe Councillor Baldry actually made a recommendation earlier on. I'm not quite sure why. He's not a member of the overview and scrutiny committee, but I think he made a recommendation that we should bring forward the sort of scrutiny of the bin collection and discuss it as a committee earlier on. I would have imagined imagine we would have done it actually today, but it doesn't look like you're proposing any amendment based on Councillor Baldry's recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Molyneux, would you like to explain why it's not on the agenda for today?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We took the decision, the Chairman and I and the Executive Member, Councillor Austin, that actually we needed to look at this in sort of the cold light of day. I'm well aware of the issues that members have been experiencing. I know members have been getting complaints. We've all been getting complaints to a number of us. And actually the focus at the moment is on resolving those complaints and getting the service back running. And that's the most important thing at the moment. So I think it's important that we reflect on what went wrong, how it went wrong, what was done and what wasn't done in the cold light of reflection rather than in the heat of the moment. And certainly from an officer perspective, I couldn't afford to divert officer time into today's discussions talking about individual issues, when actually what I need is officers working with the supplier and contractor to sort those issues out now. So that was the approach that we felt was most appropriate, and I'm pleased that the Executive Member and the Chairman agreed with that approach.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
Yeah, the issue I was actually addressing was not necessarily that, but I believe earlier on in the meeting, Councillor Baldry actually made a recommendation that we bring forward the discussion of the waste collection. Is that not the case, that he did that?
Yeah, he was talking about bringing it before the next meeting of this panel meeting, and that is what I'm proposing.
And is it okay for a member, to make a recommendation who's not on the committee at the same time?
No. Can I just say I've not had any discussions at all with Councillor Baldry on this prior to the meeting. I discussed it with Mr. Molyneux, and it was just the two of us discussed it as to when it would be appropriate for it to come before the panel. I discussed that with Mr. Molyneux. Mr. Molyneux has just reported on that. I did not have any discussions with Mr. Baldry on that, with Councillor Baldry on that. So I am proposing.
Do we have a recommendation from Councillor Baldry? That's what I'm asking, because no. I seem to remember. Well, no. I seem to remember he did actually make a recommendation.
Well, he may have made a recommendation, but that's not a recommendation that I, as chair, are willing to put before the panel.
Sorry, Chair. You've got a councillor.
Can you please let me finish, please? The recommendation is that at the next overview and scrutiny panel meeting, which is in January, that the issue of the waste collection that will be addressed by the panel, and that we will receive a report, as I mentioned earlier on, and that is part of the proposal from the chair.
Who put forward that recommendation, Chair?
I'm putting it forward. Councillor Austin, can we please move on? There is a recommendation. The recommendation is that I've just mentioned the recommendation concerning the waste issue report come before the overview and scrutiny panel at its January meeting, and that furthermore those items to be considered for scheduling, that the scheduling of those items be the subject of a meeting between myself, the Vice Chair, Councillor Smurden, and officers, so as to have these items scheduled and included in the work programme. That is a recommendation, that is a proposal from the Chair. Do I have a seconder, please?
Yes, I'd second that, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Smurden. So that is the proposal that is before the panel. Again, I'd ask if there's any member who opposes that recommendation or doesn't support it, could they please indicate in the chat box? No.
There's nobody typing in, Chair.
Right, so that is carried, and that is the end of the meeting. Thank you very much indeed, members, and have you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.